This is Ray Varner, class of 2010, with the Living Legacies Oral History Project, in particular the Women of Randolph-Macon Oral History Project. And we are in Annandale, Virginia on August 11th, 2011. So at the home of Debbie Larsen, class of 82. She was known as Debbie Yetman when she was at Randolph-Macon. Okay, Debbie, so where did you grow up?
Mostly on the East Coast. My father was a career naval officer, so I lived in Jacksonville, Florida, Norfolk, Charleston, and here for a large majority of the time in Northern Virginia in Annandale. I went to high school here at Woodson High School.
Okay. So how did you hear about Randolph-Macon College?
I believe initially they had a section at the high school where you would hear about the different colleges. I believe the college also sent me information in the mail. And one of my grandmother's sister's husband had attended a long time ago,
Yeah.
in the 18 somethings. I don't know the exact year, but I think between the flyers that came in the mail, it was interesting, interested me, and then I went and visited it.
How was that visit? What was the campus like?
I actually loved it. I had applied to several other colleges, but when I visited Randolph-Macon, I really liked the whole feel of the campus. The library, we went in the library, which doesn't look like what it looks now. There's been some additions made from it. There were three main academic buildings: the Fox, the Haley Hall, and the Science Center that we mostly, took classes in. There was the Welcoming Center, I can't think of the name of it, where you got your mail, and it has the student store.
Oh, the campus center?
Campus Center.
Oh.
Campus Center.
That's what you're saying.
That building was there. And we went in the different dorms, the ones that were it was called New Dorm and Moreland and Mary Branch, which were like the upper part of the campus. And then there were the motels. Garland and Jones were the girls' dorms back then, and the rest of them were the boys' dorms. And I just really liked the feel of the campus. I liked the people that were giving us the tour. They clearly liked the school. The faculty that we talked to, I really liked it. Once I'd been at the school, it was very clearly my number one choice. And I'd applied to William and Mary, and I think Madison. I can't remember if I played at George Mason. I may have, but that was more of a commuter school then. And I think the University of South Carolina. And once I went to Randolph-Macon, I just fell in love with it.
So what year was that when you made the visit to campus? That would have been 70.
It was probably either the fall of 76 or the spring of 77.
Okay, so
Somewhere that year, I believe.
So at that point, the college had been co-ed for a handful of years. Did you think anything about the fact that the college had just gone co-ed? Did that factor into your decision at all?
I don't know that it necessarily factored in my decision. I know that there was a higher number of boys that attended than girls, but when I went there, I didn't get the feeling that there were hardly any girls. An interesting comparison. My sister went to the Naval Academy. It's the class of 1985 from there. And when she went, I really felt, wow, she's kind of a pioneer, and, she was in the first groups. And it turns out when I went back and looked, she's in the 9th year of graduating, that graduates, from when they attended. I'm not saying that quite right. From when women were admitted
Yeah.
to when she graduated was 9 years.
Okay. She was like the fifth class.
Fifth or sixth class, somewhere around that. And from when women were admitted to Randolph-Macon in I think 72, I was around. It ended up I should have graduated in 81. I would have been the ninth class. And I didn't get the feeling that I was more of a pioneer, whereas my sister who went to the Naval Academy, you just didn't get that feel. I was welcomed by everybody that was there. I didn't get the feeling that, any of the professors that I personally had didn't want women there. Everybody was welcoming, and I don't know that it played a huge decision as to why I selected that school. Mm-hmm. If that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. Do you remember arriving to campus as a freshman?
Yes.
What that day was like? Or
I actually had been on campus prior to when we first reported at the beginning, end of August, beginning of September. I'd come earlier in August because at the time, the person I was dating was playing on the football team, was an incoming freshman also, and was playing on the football team. So I had gone down in August to when it was not involved in the dorms or any of that stuff, and had seen the campus and really liked it. And so the day that we came, with our families, and I was fortunate enough to be living in Garland, and so I was one of the group. We called ourselves the Garland Girls later, and we everybody was really friendly, and everybody helped each other moving stuff in, and I think we were up around by the campus center and walking around campus, and there was a lot of excitement, and everybody was really friendly. And I actually ran into a person that I had met on the tour. That was a girl by the name of Kathy Hanford, who was an incoming freshman. So I ran into her that day. So that was kind of exciting because we, said hello. We didn't end up being roommates because we really didn't know each other. Were ultimately going there. But it was an exciting, it was definitely an exciting period. That everybody was thrilled, and of course our parents. As a parent myself now, I'm sure my parents were like sad because I was the oldest and the first one to go off to school. But we were excited to be there, and it was fun.
Do you remember any type of orientation or anything like that?
I'm sure we must have had some kind of, I honestly,
It's okay.
I don't know. It was too long ago. I'm sure there was something that we did, maybe, but I don't know where it would have been. I'm sure like our RA, once everybody came in, we all like met in the hall and introduced ourselves and that type of thing in the dorm per se. But I can't even remember, because now kids pick classes on computers, and so you didn't do that then. I think we picked our classes once we got there. Maybe I'm not even really sure. So there must have been some kind of orientation where you got your schedule.
Yeah.
But I honestly don't remember.
Can you tell me what the food was like when you were there?
Oh, geez. Saga was the name of the company, and I think most people refer to it Serve Any Garbage Available, which, it was going from where you're living with your family and eating your family's food and going into a cafeteria style. You'd walk in, and it was a big rectangular room that you kind of walked through the line. It wasn't great, looking back. I'm sure they, use that as an expression because, it just kind of rhymed and was funny. But it wasn't outstanding food, but I don't think it was, horrible. I mean, we had breakfast, lunch, and dinner. We didn't have to make it ourselves. We all went to the at the time, mostly everybody ate in the cafeteria. there wasn't a lot of off-campus living, and so it was a social event as well. You know, you went with your roommates, or you went with your friends, or you know, people that were in because at the time there was only fraternities on campus. So the fraternity guys would sit together, or the football players would sit together, or whoever people interacted, and then whoever you got to be friendly with, or whoever you hung around with, you would sit with those people. So it was a social outing most meals. And I don't think the food was horrible, but it certainly not what's in a high school cafeteria these days. But it wasn't the Ritz either.
Yeah. Can you tell me more about your social life? So just what activities you were involved in?
For the first 2 years, I was a cheerleader, and so I went to the football games, and we would go at the home games, and some of the away games we would go to, as long as they weren't too far, we would go. And we cheered for football, and we cheered for basketball, and this was obviously men's sports. So I did that. I was also involved with the men's lacrosse team from the whole time I was there. Each year I was one of the managers, and kept track of the scores and the time, and running in to call the emergency, because we didn't have cell phones back then. So if somebody got hurt, you had to go find a phone and make a phone call. So I was involved in those. And I also was involved with KA, which was one of the fraternities that's still there. And basically what we did is we had, the fraternities had little sisters. And so a lot of girls were whichever group they hung around the most with, you would be selected. And you could be a little sister if you chose to do that.
So, do you have an initiation process or something like that, or is it?
Not like when the guys would get initiated to be into the fraternity. It was more like you were invited. Do you want to be a little sister? And we kind of did. And we'd get together and we'd help out and do, stuff with the guys, have parties or whatever we were doing. We hung around if we just wanted to go over the house and sit and watch TV with them. We were there a lot of the times with those fraternities, and there a lot of the fraternities had little sisters, not just KA. That was just the group that I hung around with. Mm-hmm. Not the only group, but
yeah. What was it like being a cheerleader?
It was fun. We practiced, in the old gym. That's where the tryouts were, which I don't even know what you guys call it anymore. The old gym is the one that has the track.
The alumni gym.
That has the track.
It's Crenshaw Crenshaw is the bigger part of the gym, but
right.
The other part is the alumni gym.
Okay, it's called alumni gym now. Well, and it had a track that you used to, I don't know if you can run around it anymore, but
you can't. I've done it a couple times. It's pretty fun, but you're not.
Then you could. we would all, we'd run around there, but that's where tryouts were, and I was really excited to make being a cheerleader. I hadn't been a cheerleader in high school, so it was a lot of fun. We did the normal practice every week so that we would know the cheers, and we cheered in front of the portion of, they were like metal stands at that time. And went with the different teams. So, it was fun. We had a good time.
So I imagine you would go to Hampton, Sydney for those games?
Yeah, I think we went to Hampton, Sydney. I can remember going to Madison. It's hard to distinguish. I know we went to Shepherd. I can't remember all the different places, but we cheered for every home game, and then that was true for basketball too. We would cheer at the end of at the end zone, mm-hmm. and go out, at the different breaks and do a little cheer in the middle of the floor. But yeah, we had a good time. It was fun. I found that after my second year, I wanted to spend more time on my studies, and that, it can take time. It takes time away for practice and different things like that. So I decided at that point I guess it had my fill and needed to move on to do something else.
So, did you enjoy the football games and everything more as a student or as a cheerleader?
I don't know that I would say that I enjoyed them more either way. I mean, when I was a cheerleader and performing and cheering and getting the crowd all riled up, that was fun for what it was at that period of time and where I was in my life. And then later, when I was, had been there a couple of years, and we'd hang out with, whoever our friends were, whether we were in the end zone or in the stands, I still enjoyed it. I liked watching the games, cheering for the guys. I knew most of the people that were playing football, or a large percentage of them. So it was a good camaraderie. So I don't know that I would say one I liked better than the other.
Okay.
If that makes, yeah.
No, that's fine. I was really just trying to get you to talk about it. So, do you remember the big social events that would go on during the year? What were some of those?
A lot of the fraternities had parties. It's different because when I was there, the drinking age was 18. For, I think, beer and wine, and I'm not a big drinker, but I think beer and wine, and I think alcohol was 21. So the fraternities could have parties. And so most of the fraternities we would go to. I'd KA and Kappa Sig and SAE and Phi Delt and Phi Cap. I don't even know if all of these ones are still there, but it was set up in such a way that if you were a KA, for example, we welcomed other people. Like if I went to Kappa Sig, they didn't say, "Oh no, you can't come in here." We also had parties sometimes in the dorms. We'd have dances in the Crenshaw portion of the gym that people would come to as well. But it was mostly, I would say, within what was going on. Like when I lived in Garland, we had had a Halloween party there, and then whatever was going on at the fraternities. There were a few things like homecoming. There would always be a big. They had tailgate parties at the football games and that type of thing. So it was kind of, that long fraternity row, and then KA and Kappa Sig used to be right next to each other. I think they've since torn the Kappa Sig house down, but they used to be right next to each other. And so most people would kind of go there, and then in the different dorms, they would have varying parties of whatever. They had Camptown, which would be in the courtyard between Mary Branch, Moreland, and it was called New Dorm then. And they'd have bands that would play in there, and people would sit out and have picnics, and some people wouldn't drink way too much, but it was a pretty pretty wild time. And then at KA, which is the fraternity that I was associated with, they had Old South, which was a big huge party that they had, and you'd dress up in Southern Belle dresses and that type of thing. So that was once a year that they had that. That was fun.
This is kind of off topic, but would the girls dress up for the football games? Like you're saying, what would girls normally wear to football games?
Jeans, and not like in dresses or any of that. I've seen them since, I've gone down multiple times for homecoming. And I think the students now get more, what I would say, dressed up than what we did back then. It was very casual. Back then, for people wore jeans and whatever, depending on the weather.
Yeah.
how many layers you needed to put on if it got really cold or
Yeah,
rainy or
exactly.
whatever. But it was not, I don't remember specifically, like girls wearing dresses and high heels or any of that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Not that I recall.
Yeah. At the time, did you feel like with the relationship between boys and girls, would boys normally, because it had been a problem. I don't know if it continued to be a problem, but I guess it wasn't really a problem. But some of the girls might have felt bad about it. That guys were getting, I guess, dates and everything from other schools. Like they would go to Mary Washington or Longwood, or did that still happen when you were?
Yeah, they girls would come down from Mary Washington when a lot of the times if they were having a fraternity party or whatever, they would come down. And whether they were invited or not, I don't know. I mean, I'm sure some of the guys knew, the girls from Mary Wash, because I believe at the time Mary Washington was all girls. I might be wrong on that. I'm not sure if it was co-ed. I don't know for sure, but somehow in my mind it was either mostly women or there were a lot of girls that went to Mary Wash and they would come down. I have a vague recollection. I think a bunch of them even came down in like a truck, but that might be, piled in the truck and came down. But yeah, they did come. I don't know that for me personally, I never really felt like threatened or felt like, what are they doing here? Different people, that I associated with, their girlfriends would come from other schools or from back home or wherever they live. Some people had boyfriends and girlfriends on campus, but not everybody did, and I didn't feel that was a big issue. No.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
But it did. I mean, people did come.
Yeah.
I specifically remember Mary Wash. I don't know that I necessarily remember Longwood per se, but that doesn't mean that they weren't from there.
Yeah. So who would you say were your close friends while you were at Randolph-Macon?
You mean specific names?
Well, I mean,
Or-
names or, why you were friends or kind of the idea of, how you met and stuff like that. So.
Well, I was friends with a lot of the KAs that were in the fraternity that were around my age, maybe a year older, a year younger, that we hung out. And even to this day, I'm still friends with a lot of them. We're friends on Facebook, and we just did a lot of things together.
When you say the K's, do you mean just the guys or the little sisters and the brothers?
The little sisters as well.
Okay.
And more, a lot now I'm friends with some of the guys on Facebook, that from years ago. Some of the girls I'm still friends with. I am friends with a couple girls that, the one girl that I mentioned that I met when we were seniors in high school, and then we met again. Her name's Kathy. She and I are still friends. And another girl, Lynn, who was my roommate, we were all math majors. And so we still periodically get together a couple times a year and have lunch. They live in this area. So I'm still friends with them. Some other girls from like that were in my wedding. My friend Amy, we're still friends. There's some other that are a little bit younger than I am that we were friends, that we're still like friends on Facebook. Different people that I was roommates with. The one girl that I was a roommate, my freshman roommate, didn't stay more than half of the year. And so with the exception of her, all the other girls that I roomed with were still friends. We exchanged Christmas cards, and we don't all live in the same area, but we communicate with, occasionally, a letter of how you're doing, or if we're friends. Some of us are friends on Facebook, and we still, hang out.
So you would say that most of your friends came from K or the dorm you lived in?
The dorm I lived in, several of the girls were still friends with that we lived in with from Garland. Some of them also I lived in New Dorm, and so I made some friends in there, and so we kind of get together periodically, usually around homecoming. I also am friends with some of the guys that played on the football team and the lacrosse team, where I was the manager. So some of those guys.
So when you were at school, who did you spend the most time with, though?
I probably spent a large percentage of the time at KA, at that fraternity. The person I ultimately married was a KA.
Okay.
We're not married anymore, but I did date actually some of the time, and not all of the time I was there. We dated, but so yeah, I spent a lot of time at KA, and then just with my girlfriends that were people that lived in the dorm with me, type of thing.
So you lived in Garland, and then
I lived in Garland my freshman year, and then the rest of the time I lived in New Dorm on varying floors.
Okay. Did you move to New Dorm because of the air conditioning, or because of?
I think I moved to New Dorm. I liked living in Garland. However, you had a bathroom at the end of the hall, or in the middle of the hall, and so there were so many rooms that would go into a bathroom with a big shower. And when you went to New Dorm, you had basically a suite, 2 rooms that shared a bathroom. And so for that convenience, I don't think it was as much for the air conditioning.
Just kidding.
No, but I don't think they were. I don't think Garland was air conditioned at the time. But I think it was more for the convenience of having your own bathroom in between.
Did you feel like there was a different atmosphere with the girls who lived in Garland and the girls that lived in the New Dorm? Or was it just a different place?
It was just a different place because some of the people that had lived with me in Garland went, like the girl Tracy Dybert, who was my roommate the second year there, she had lived in Garland with me, and so we moved up because I think we really wanted the bathroom. No, I mean, I think at some point, and it was I think it was one of the last years that I was there, they made one end of the 3rd floor, it got nicely dubbed the vault, because they supposedly no guys could walk through that section. I'm not sure how well that really worked, but I mean, that was, an idea that I don't know if parents chose or whatever, but I remember that aspect of, that part of the hall was a little bit different, but no, I mean, I can, I can think that they probably said some of the girls in the motels might have been wilder, but I don't know that necessarily would be 100% of the case. I don't know that I'd really agree. I think, yeah, and then and Mary Branch was also up there, but I didn't really hang around with a lot of people that lived in that particular dorm, just a few.
Okay. And I assume, and this was past all the visitation policy time, so I guess you never had to deal with, yeah, you didn't have to, but, what was it like in the dorms, though? Were there lots of guys in the girls' dorms, and, was that a common occurrence could you talk about the vault? Was it?
I don't know that, I don't remember specifically that there was it was set up in, like, Garland and Jones were the girls' dorms, and the other dorms, like Bennett and Irby and Smith, the other ones that were there, the boys lived there, and only the girls lived in the back dorms. Yep. And then the upper part of the campus, Mary Branch and New Dorm were strictly girls, and Moreland was boys. And then, of course, all the fraternities had boys living in them. So the girls had, I guess, less places where they lived. I can remember, times, you'd have a fire drill and guys would come out in the middle of the night from the girls' dorm. Mm-hmm. I don't remember saying specifically, like you didn't have an issue like in the motels that, if you went to the bathroom, you'd have to worry about who's, coming in and out of the bathroom. But I'm sure there were guys that stayed.
Yeah.
But I don't know technically what the visitation.
Yeah, there were no rules at that point. It's just I was just trying to get your reaction to the fact that there used to be rules.
Because now I think I don't know. I mean, do girls and boys live amongst those? Like mixed in the dorms. Like, is Garland like only girls?
Well, Garland's only girls, but I think Jones one half is girls, one half is boys. The freshman halls are more divided, but the upperclassmen halls, because now it's called the freshman village, and only freshmen live
in the motels.
Yeah, because
it was called the motels when I went there.
So but in the up campus or down, I always forget when.
I would say the motels are down campus.
Yeah, the down camp. No, well, yeah, but I mean in the upperclassmen dorms now. I mean it's all different,
which are where Moreland.
Those are
Moreland
every other dorm. It's the upperclassmen.
Conrad and Mary Branch. And there's that new one, Thomas Branch, I think.
Yeah.
They redid.
Yeah, it's older, but yeah, I guess it is new in terms of.
It was closed when we were there.
Yeah.
Like you didn't go in there.
But all those, I mean, there's women and men or girls and guys on the same hall. I mean, just you don't share a bathroom. There's no hall bathrooms where there's guys and girls in the same hall. But if it's a suite, then some bathrooms will be boys and then others.
The next one, yeah.
So
it's not like that at all.
Yeah. So I mean that changed a little bit later, and even I think Garland was actually the first co-ed dorm in the sense that they just put a brick wall in between the two halves, and they called it a co-ed dorm.
Okay.
But they since changed it. It's just I mean, but those things change all the time, so it's not But
I mean, I can remember. I mentioned that we'd have like a party in Garland. We'd have a keg party or whatever. Whereas when I went to Madison to see a really good friend from high school, they didn't have any keg parties in any of their dorms. I mean, I'm sure they did at some of the fraternities, but they were much more strict than we had to deal with. Now, I'm not saying that they weren't, I think they were probably I don't know why, but it just seemed my impression from when I went to Madison that it was much more strict in that regard, in the dorm per se, than we seem to have.
Yeah. And you didn't have a house mother, right?
Oh no.
Yeah.
We had an RA that was this, like we were freshmen and sophomores or whatever year we were, and she was maybe a junior or senior. Every hall had an RA. Garland had like two halves. If you went in the main entrance in the middle, and you'd have a left side and a right side. So there was an RA at this end and an RA at this end.
Yeah,
and that would be the same. And they would. I think you would go to them if you had questions or problems. I mean, they weren't like the, security guard or anything type of, But no, there was not a house mother anywhere on campus that I'm aware of. Like not in any fraternity and not in any dorm.
Okay. So, what was your major when you were at Randolph-Macon?
I majored in math.
Okay. Yeah, you told me that. Sorry.
It's okay.
And so who was your advisor?
I think it was Dr. Moore, Roger Moore. I was looking back and at some of the different math teachers I had, and the one thing that was really nice about Randolph-Macon is if you ever had a question, you'd go to class first of all, and at the time, I don't think I ever had a class even with 30 people. 25 people. I mean, it was just a regular sized classroom. I can remember one math class I had, there was 5 people. So they certainly knew when you didn't show up. I mean, it was very apparent. But everybody, they knew who you were. You weren't just a number. They knew your name. If you had a question, you would go and get help from the professor during office hours. not, not a TA or, I mean, you could get help from your friends, but, you had the option where the professor would actually give you help if you needed it. And they knew who you were. And, that was nice. I like that. I think one colloquy, which I don't think they call it colloquy anymore, but January term now, or J term, it used to be called colloquy. Mm-hmm. And I think one colloquy class that I took in it was a psychology one, I think maybe had 50 people. I mean, that one I remember was in a bigger lecture hall, and I remember, wow, there's a lot of people in here in comparison. But I took some great colloquies. I went to Germany with Dr. Noe, who was the German teacher. I did not take German, but you could take the class. I think we studied Hitler, which was not what I was really interested in, but the year before they had studied Ludwig, and so some of the same people wanted to go on the trip, so he had to switch what he was teaching so that they could go. So that was really a great experience. The math teachers, I had Dr. Bishop and Dr. Moore, Chet Gibson. I don't know that I can remember everybody's name. Phil Stanton, I think. And they were all fairly knowledgeable. I think there was a man, Dr. Peace, my first year, but I never had him, that I guess was just quite bright. And I think some people thought he talked over them, but I never had him, so I don't know. And I know there was one professor that I think didn't particularly like girls, but I never had him either, I think he maybe used curse words or something that, he wasn't going to change the way he did whatever. But in the computer, I look now and I think of the space that was the computer lab. And like I took a physics class with Dr. Hesse, and I think we were writing in Fortran, and they were these cards that you'd get in this long stack, and you'd have to put this in a machine, and it would go through, and you were in big trouble if you dropped them on the floor, and you had to draw a line across the top so that they'd line up correctly. And look at my son works for Apple now, and I look at this little laptop that he brings home here that's tiny, and the advances are just amazing. From when I was in school, what we had, but they had the computer stuff, and you can get in there, and the computers, I think, were in a room because this is a dining room, but that was interesting. But I spent most of my time in the science building. In my first year, I took some in the some English classes. I had Dr. Bond, who was a female English teacher, and she was good. I liked her, and a lot of the teachers were male, but there were a couple that were female that you didn't feel. They always were welcoming to me, I thought. Mm-hmm. I loved going to Randolph-Macon. I mean, I was a person that when I was in high school, I loved being in high school. I liked the high school I went to. I was involved in what I did. And I did the same thing when I was in college. I wasn't wanting to be someplace else. I loved my experience at Randolph-Macon. And I am friends with a lot of the people that I met there to this day. And I can't say enough good things about that school.
Were you one of the only, I guess, females in the math department, or were there others? Or?
Yes, there were others. Interestingly enough, I looked through the yearbook to find out about how many math majors there were for the class of 81, and it was about half and half, guys and girls, which I was a little surprised. My friends Kathy and Lynn and I were all math majors, and we're still friends and do stuff together. And there was a couple others that I remembered, and then there was a couple I'd forgotten that they were math majors. But it was, I think some of the classes were more heavily guys than girls, but because depending on what classes you took, I think that was one that might have tended to be heavier boys than some of the other ones. But
Yeah. So what did you do after graduation?
I moved back to this area in Northern Virginia, and I started teaching at Oakton High School. I was a math teacher there from 1982 to 1989, which is when my older son was born, the fall of '89. He'll be 22 in September. And so at that point, I stayed home for about a year, and at the time my husband was transferred to California, so I moved to California and just was a stay-at-home mom. In 1999 I moved, no, that's not right, 1997 I moved back from California to Northern Virginia. I actually got separated from my husband, and so I moved back here. And in 1999 I went back into teaching, and I teach at West Springfield High School, and that's where I still am now. I teach pre-calculus and honors geometry.
Oh, so you stayed with the math the whole time.
And my friend Kathy works for Northridge Grumman. She's just one of their directors, and so I don't know that hers is purely math, but I'm sure some of hers had to do with it. And Lynn was also a math major, works for American Express, but she does a lot of writing. And I think we had a conversation one time, and she said, well, she's not sure she'd major in math again. She might major in English or something, because she does more writing now than what she did. But as you mentioned, one of the advantages of Randolph-Macon is it's such a liberal art, being liberal arts, you are exposed to so many different things. There's a lot of things that you can do once you graduate from there. I mean, several of my friends have gone on to be doctors, lawyers. There's several that are teachers, business owners, so I think you get a very good education. If you've graduated from Randolph-Macon, you have worked hard, and you have to be somewhat intelligent. You can't just fumble your way through there and get out. And I'm sure, it'd be interesting to know how many people started and how many people actually graduated. I'm sure they have that statistics. I didn't think about it till recently, and I thought, well, I wonder how many people who, came in really actually ended up graduating.
Yeah, it's a pretty important number that the college looks at. Just, how many students come through and stay. But how have you stayed in contact with the college since you graduated?
Initially, when I was first out, I did some alumni stuff where you would contact students and different things like that. But once I moved to California, which was in 91 maybe, then I kind of got out of that, and because I was so far away. When I moved back in 97, I would say, not initially, but in the first 5 years maybe, then I started to, I go back for homecoming. Not every year, but in the past couple of years, I've gone for some reunions, and I'm planning on going this year. So I even have my magazine from Randolph-Macon in the kitchen. I just had gotten it recently. It was in there. So I always read those. I'm always interested in that. And I get the emails from the football coach sends out an email, or maybe he's the athletic director, that's during the season you get around the fountain or something like that, it's called, some kind of email. Talks about the different things going on campus. Does that sound familiar?
Yeah, it's kind of the email newsletter.
Yeah, so I look at that, and then I through Facebook I'm actually friends with a lot of different people that went to school with me. One of the girls recently was in Japan when all of that went on with the earthquake and the whatever. So I was really thrilled to be able to, we'd met, she was in the class, she's a little bit older than I am, to see that she was okay. So I think a lot now, I mean, I think kids will have more of an easier go at it, so to speak, by having Facebook or some kind of social media, even texting, with on their cell phones, that you can get in touch. Whereas, before you had to sit down and write a letter, really to keep in touch. And a lot of, over time, when I was first out, we'd go to different people's weddings, and so you'd see people then. Unfortunately, in the past couple of years, we've had to have some funerals, which is always sad. And but we get together and we chat. It's interesting because I think most time when I get together with any of the people that I've known from school, it's like you just saw them yesterday and you pick right back up and start talking, and so it's important to me. I'm a pretty social person, so I tend to make sure that I do the effort that I need to keep in touch with friends from high school or friends from college or friends, from when I lived in California or things like that. I'm not one that, once you leave there, there are people that are like that. They get out of high school and then they don't want anything to do with it again, or they go to college and then they don't have anything to do with it. I'm not like that. So to me, I had great experiences at Randolph-Macon. I actually, in the past couple of years, I have one student that she's going to be a senior in high school this year, and I was encouraging her. She mentioned she'd gone to Randolph-Macon for a visit, and we had a conversation about it. She's the kind of person that I think would do well there. So I try to keep in touch with the people I knew from school. Not as 100% like I'd like to, but
Yeah.
give it a good college try anyway.
Yeah. This is kind of a different question, but if you were just talking about, I asked this question to all the women, but you were just talking about the girl that is about to go to college.
Yeah.
So think of a hypothetical student, that's about to enter college, about to enter Randolph-Macon. What advice would you give that student, based on your experience and your experience afterward? So.
Well, I think one of the important things that I'm sure Randolph-Macon still does is I would tell the student, if you go there, whatever classes you've signed up for, make that connection with the professor, go the extra mile, so to speak, that go see him, at an office hour. If nothing, then just to have a conversation to get to know them, and it'll make it more comfortable if you need to go and have extra help. That would be one thing. The other thing I would say is absolutely get involved in whatever it is that you love, whether it's a fraternity. Now they've got sororities. There's a lot more sports available for women. I think it was one of the last years I was down there, they were just starting to do women's lacrosse, and we had it kind of like a club, and then it turned into a women's sports there. And I'm not what I would consider very coordinated. I definitely would not be described as an athlete, but we at least tried, and we got together more as a camaraderie type of thing. So I would tell them to find a niche that they're comfortable and get involved. I mean, I think that's true. When I think of the people that I know from there, everybody was kind of involved in whatever it is that they liked or that they loved doing. And so you just kind of made a connection with them. So I would say find something don't just go and show up to class and don't get involved. That would be my advice.
Is there anything else that you feel like was an important part of your experience that we haven't touched on, or that you would like to share?
Well, I think that for me, Randolph-Macon was a perfect fit. I came from a high school that was probably bigger. At the time, I think my graduating class from high school had like 525 people, and I'm pretty sure we didn't have that many when I graduated. I'm thinking 200 and something, but I always felt safe. I always felt, that the professors cared about their students. We had some great experiences, the opportunities that we were given. I know that I've talked to people since, and I make some comment about we had a maid in the dorm, and they just can't even believe that you had a maid in the dorm. I get teased about that, but that was kind of nice. But I think that the friends that I made and the experiences that I learned, what I was taught there, I think I learned a lot. And I just, I have nothing but good things to say about Randolph-Macon. I enjoy when I go back, and I've been fortunate enough to go a couple of times to the president's dance that he has the Friday before homecoming, and so that's kind of a extra special thing. I don't have millions of dollars to donate like some of the people do, but I certainly can't give them enough positive feedback from my experience there.
Well, thank you. That's all the questions I have.
Okay.
So, thanks.